Good morning and welcome to The Crawl, the show where we break down the future of search, brand authority, and everything else AI is rewriting about digital marketing. I'm Tristan Harris, your host, and today we're going to be chatting with Ryan Bales all about AI and social media. Ryan Bales is a Texas-based digital strategist and co-founder of Bales and Zindler, a web design and AI SEO agency nearing its 10-year mark in 2026. For the past decade, he's helped service businesses, e-commerce brands, and local companies stay visible through multiple search eras from classic keyword SEO to today's AI-driven discovery. Ryan specializes in AI search optimization, generative engine optimization, and answer engine optimization with a practical focus on the stuff most people ignore: entity clarity, structured data, schema markup, and machine readable trust signals. His work is designed to help websites get understood, cited, and recommended by systems like Google AI Overviews, Bing Copilot, and other emerging AI search experiences, not just crawled and ranked. Known for blending technical depth with real world examples, Ryan builds fast, conversion focused websites and content ecosystems that reduce zero click risk and increase brand mentions across the web. He's especially passionate about the back end mechanics that power modern visibility, how social and third party coverage influences AI understanding, and why looking good online is no longer a good strategy. When he's not building or breaking down websites, Ryan speaks and writes about the future of search, AI visibility, and what business owners should do next to stay competitive. And with that, I'd like to welcome Ryan to the show. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on.
So, how is AI fundamentally changing the way social media platforms work? And not just from content creation, but distribution, visibility?
So, inside the AI models, they have each AI model has a different way of going about where it gets its information. So,
Mhm.
Google is relying a lot on its own ecosystem, Google's ecosystem. Copilot and Perplexity is relying more on the broader internet, not so much their ecosystem because it's not used as much as Google's. But what needs to happen for these AI models to actually see what you're doing and understand what you're doing is that you need to have a consistent message across all platforms. And that includes your social media and your website. Now, I'm not just talking Facebook and Instagram. There are other places to do this. You can also post on your Google business profile. They have places for posting there. You can do it on YouTube. It's really about finding the places where you can post your information, make sure it's consistent, and post it everywhere. Don't worry about the likes and stuff. It's more about having the information out there so that the AI can see that this is what you are presenting and this is what you are saying on your website and everywhere else. And if you do that, you'll gain authority and eventually you'll end up being an answer for what you are doing.
Exactly. And one of the things there that's really important that you mentioned is it's almost like Whose Line Is It Anyway, that show where the classic, the points don't matter. The likes and reposts, they're good for engagement, they're good for a lot of other metrics, but when it comes to AI visibility, the thing that matters the most is that consistent brand messaging, because they're looking, when they try to contextualize your brand, they're looking at your website, they're finding where your brand's being mentioned online, whether that's social or in the media, and they're using all of these data points to contextualize what your actual brand is doing and how it should present it, and in what topics and relevant prompts it should be selected. So having that consistency and that kind of messaging across the board is incredibly important. So that almost makes social media and social networks move away from, so much the social aspect to be almost like recommendation engines that are trained, more by behavior rather than the traditional, relationship ecosystem.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, social media will always be a place for people to post their pretty pictures and stuff like that. But it's also a place for businesses now to actually get in there and write the information that they need inside of these posts and not worry about all the likes and engagement. But also, you can still have the likes and engagement in those posts to keep it
Of
pretty
course.
for your human interaction, but it's really about making sure your message is out there and it's out there everywhere so people can connect the dots and put you in as an answer. One thing that's definitely interesting that just happened is that Instagram now is allowing you to add alt text to your images. Now, this is for search engines and for AI models to understand what they're looking at. Now, this is something a lot of people aren't doing now, and it needs to be done by pretty much anybody, is to put information inside of their alt text inside their images. And that alt text just needs to describe what the image is and what it's trying to do. And you don't have to load it full of keywords or anything else like that, because if you do that, you're probably gonna get, tagged for doing some bad stuff. But just it's really all about making sure all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted, make sure you have your information out everywhere and consistent.
And that's a really good point. And for any of our listeners that aren't necessarily, SEOs, the alt text for an image was originally an accessibility feature. So if for some reason an image didn't load, or if somebody was using, a text to voice to understand a page, it would describe what the image was. And now that Meta has incorporated that, or even before that, that across the board became very useful for search engines, for Google to contextualize what those images are, because they didn't have to, build something to try to, understand, like Google Lens does, what is in a picture. They were just able to check the alt text for it. So that being added on Meta, on Instagram specifically, that allows you to then, give a clearer signal about what it is. It's no longer just saying the description. It's also now able to contextualize the image.
And
And
what I always told my clients is that the internet is blind, and you have to give it the context for what you're presenting it. Now, nowadays, the internet's not blind. AI can see some images and stuff, but we still have to go about it that way, because if you don't provide that information, and if you are not giving it what it's supposed to see inside these images, it can, as we all know, hallucinate stuff and add information that you don't want. So if you can guard against that and add the alt text, add the information that you want presented, it'll guard against this hallucination and the AI junk that you are all worried about.
yeah, and just a side note, I hope my social media manager, Christina, is paying attention to that. She helps set up these podcasts, and she's sitting in the background right now making sure that nothing breaks. So shout out
I'm
to
sure I'm
Christina.
sure she's doing a great job.
She always does. She's
Yeah.
fantastic. Um, so yeah, that's super important, and I think that also leads to the question of, how much of today's content, social content, is AI driven, and in cases like this where we recognize the need for doing things like alt text for meta images, um, if that's something that is being AI driven, like what could potentially be a pitfall there?
So right now, I wouldn't say a lot of this content is AI driven. Now I can say there's a lot of AI slop out there. A lot of
Oh yeah.
people doing a lot of things that let's just say there's ways to prompt AI and there are ways to not prompt AI, and some of these people are not prompting it correctly.
Yeah.
Um, so you'll see a lot of that out there because people are just exploring this stuff. It's all new to everybody, and they're just showing, hey, look, I can do all this stuff. But the amount of people that are actually posting for AI, like me, they're they're few right now. But as time goes on, you'll see a lot more of these very informative posts that aren't as engaging to you and stuff. And just realize that some of this information is just for AI. Uh, but you do still need to go in and post for the humans. You need to make the images look awesome. You need to make the cutesy, posts and stuff like that. But also mix in the pure data that is needed to boost your search ranks.
Yeah, and I think that that kind of dichotomy of content there is super important to drill down on. There's, there's never there's never been a website that I've seen that's highly optimized for SEO, where every single piece of content is all obviously built from an SEO forward spot that converts well, because they're not getting that human connection. They're not, building that trust and helping people down funnel. And conversely, if you're only focusing on the human connection and you have amazing content, but you haven't done any kind of optimization on it, you end up in a situation where, like, okay, you might not be showing up for the right prompts. You might not be showing up for the right keyword searches and things along those lines. So there's always, that duality of we need to make sure that we're addressing becoming visible while also still making sure that we are building that human connection with our customers.
That's right.
So when we talk about amplifying content, things like engagement, watch time, things on social like sentiment, saves, reposts, all of that. What signals matter the most from that to AI? Or do you see any kind of evidence that repost or engagements or watch time are more impactful when it comes to appearance in AI? Or do you feel like it's still too early to say?
Uh, honestly, I just ran a test this weekend on a post that was an Instagram post for a restaurant that was closing, and it was just a test that I ran. I didn't do a bunch of stuff, and I did one thing just to see what happened. So what I did is I went on Instagram and Facebook. I put on there that they were closed and made an image, did the whole thing, did the alt text, did everything else. Then I went into Google My Business, or what used to be called Google My Business, Google Business Profile. And then I changed the information in there to say closed and everything else. Then I queried all of the AI models. Google ended up showing, actually, what's funny is it showed the wrong day of the week, but the right information. Perplexity did not pick up any of it. It just picked up stuff from my website. And then also Copilot just picked up stuff from my website and also other websites that were out, just like directory websites as well.
Yeah.
So that being said, you know, that information that I provided in there and where it's showing up is important. You got to make sure that you're posting and on the correct pipelines for these things. And so what I will tell you is we post on Instagram and Facebook. Obviously, it will show up on Google AI real quick, but it won't show up on Perplexity and on Copilot as quick. So doing this, making sure that you have all the information correct on all your all your areas, such as your website, Facebook, Instagram, everything else, will give you the correct information that you need. Now,
Yeah.
Tristan, I know I completely avoided this topic after I just got on a rant. So what was the question?
No, no, totally fine. Rants are fun. We love rants here. I actually would love to continue on this because it creates a really interesting situation that we're in now. Previously, if you go back a couple of years before the advent of AI search and all of that, we would optimize for primarily Google and in edge cases, Bing, right? And those
Mhm.
were the two, 85, 90% of everything was for Google. Now we're in a situation where, the same thing isn't working for every place that people are searching. And it creates this situation for us where it's okay, we in this specific situation, like, hours changed or we were closed on this day for, an unexpected thing. We want to get the news out there. Being able to update your Google My Business, which I will never call it Google Business for
Yeah,
after all these years, it's Google My
it's still
Business.
Google My Business.
Yeah. Um, it's not just good enough to update that now. And you have to, help with the signals on social. You have to help with the signals on your own site. And then you're still going to have an issue where, incorrect information is being represented because it's looking at directory sites. So you might not even know that your brand's on. It could be something that scraped every local restaurant in, Tyler, Texas, and put on Sonny's barbecue, Stanley's barbecue, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it just found the hours from 3 years ago and it never updated. So those situations, it's kind of like I use this phrase once in a while, like the wild west of the AI search era. And eventually, what will happen is something that another guest of ours talked about, where usually it boils down to two options, Pepsi or Coke,
Hmm.
uh, Bing or Google. It's going to boil down to two options here, and you have the mainstream one, and then you have the one that also has a sizable audience and a good following. So when we get to that point, it'll be easier for us to say, like, okay, here are the 5 places that we can, leverage content and, post or whatever it is to influence, the big, the biggest audience, right? But right now, everything's fragmented. Like, sure, ChatGPT gets a ton, Google Gemini gets a ton, but then we have Perplexity and we have a million other places that are pulling data from. So it's a really interesting time to be in the industry because you have to be able to track all of these and you have to be able to do these experiments like we did last weekend to figure out, okay, where is this being influenced, how is this being influenced, and kind of reverse engineer where those signals are being found. And the challenging part is that changes frequently.
Mhm.
So we're in a position where for those of us who love change and love to be able to dive in and figure things out and treat it like almost another Knives Out mystery, you know what I mean? It's really cool. It's a good time to be, in the industry.
It,
And for
it's it's a great time to be in this industry because there's a lot of stuff that people don't know,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of mystery to it all. And it's just I'm chipping away at tiny little pieces. I'm just trying to figure out, all right, if I post here and not here, where does this affect? And then understanding how these models pick up information will give you an idea as to what you're supposed to be posting, what you're supposed to be writing about, everything else. It gives you the more you look into it, the more information you'll have in your head going forward, and you'll be doing a lot better job at tricking, not tricking, but getting your stuff in front of these models and actually being sourced.
Oh yeah, exactly. And that's the fun part of it, figuring it out, right? So and there's a lot of groups of SEOs out there that share information, and there's sites like SEO Roundtable who are digging into a lot of this, and SEO Journal and things along those lines. But being able to do these experiments, see what other people are experimenting with, kind of aggregate all of those results into a strategy, that's where it goes from, I've got maybe an idea of what to do to I have a cohesive plan on what to do moving forward. And so I guess we can jump into another topic, and that's kind of talking about mistakes that brands make when they're using AI solely for speed. So instead of, strategy, which is something we kind of talked about, is building that cohesive strategy. What a lot of people are doing first with everything AI is they're, implementing it to see how fast it can go. And,
Mhm. Now,
I've
when you
seen,
say that fast, as in how fast you can get content out, or fast as in how fast my website is?
so both, but I know that, on the website side, it's a whole nother can of worms. The content side is something that, we've seen quite a bit of, and I'm sure you have anecdotes as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, have you seen those mistakes? And I would love to hear about the web dev side too of, going too fast with Claude and building a site and then
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, it all boils down to taking your time and making sure whatever you're posting is what you're supposed to be posting. A lot of this stuff, people take it as a shortcut, and when you do that, you start getting sloppy. And just a reminder, this is your website and your Facebook. It's a brochure for you, your
Mhm.
company, your person. And if you're not putting out information or topics or anything that you wouldn't post yourself, that's just on you. You have to be present. You have to be reading through your stuff. If it's AI generated, make sure it's right. Don't just sit there and post it out and get on N8, or was it N8N? What is it? How do you say
we
that?
we call it Nathan.
Nathan?
I don't actually know how to pronounce it.
So, like, if you get on Nathan and just say, I want you to do 1,000 posts about this topic or whatever, all you're doing is flood the internet full of crud, and you're not really benefiting anybody.
Yeah.
You're and also, just so you know, I mean, these AI systems can see if something is good or not. I mean, you have people checking if stuff's AI all the time before you submit it. And you don't think these
Yep.
search engines are doing that? Of course they are. So you got to make sure whatever you're posting is what you would want to post, and it's not just a bunch of garbage junk that can actually. And also, another thing, one thing I do if I'm going to do any kind of AI posting is I make sure it has sources, on those articles so that we can go back and prove in real time that this is where this information came from. Because if we can't prove that, you can't. You
Yeah,
can't
you
prove it.
can
I
you
mean,
can you
it
can't
could have made that information up for you, and if you can't tie it back to where it came from, then you don't really
exactly.
have that knowledge.
Exactly, and there's that is actually a very good pro tip for prompting, right? Ask for
Mhm.
sources. Ask for, I go in depth as asking for, sources from accredited universities, right?
Oh, yeah.
Give me the link to Penn
I get
State,
into doing academic articles. I mean,
Yeah,
I dive into but it's all you can feed your models great information, and you can get a lot of great information out of it, but you truly have to read through it because it will make stuff up.
yeah,
And if you don't
absolutely.
read through it and you make stuff up and people are saying, "You said this is true," and whatever, and it ties back to you, it's not good.
Yeah, and, there's been a lot of very high profile cases in like medicine and treatments for injuries and things like that have been out in the media where, chat GPT led people astray. One thing I mentioned probably enough that Christina's going to ask me to stop mentioning it. One of our first guests on our podcast series, he did a test with ChatGPT, and he figured out which Unicode they were using for emoji libraries, right? And he asked it to give them an emoji of a seahorse, and it very confidently gave him an emoji of a horse. And then he said, "No, that's not right." And it said, "Yes, that's not right. Here you go." And then it was an emoji of the sea. And he was like, "This is still incorrect. You're not doing this right." And eventually it realized, "I don't have this. I can't give it to you." And it tried to create like an ASCII, art
Yeah,
out of
SES.
text. Yeah, and it just wasn't amazing, but it at least was a seahorse, right? But the idea is in the test there was he knew, okay, it won't be able to do this. Let's see what happens.
Right.
And it was very confidently incorrect, right? And
Oh, it's very confident whatever information it gives you.
yep,
You really have to just make sure it ties back to what you're saying and the information is legit because yes,
absolutely.
it will make stuff up. It will state things are correct when they are not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the biggest risk I feel a lot of people have. If you're, put yourself in the shoes of you're writing an email to the CEO of your company that requested some information and you go to ChatGPT and you type it up and you send it off. Like you would verify that before you send it.
R-
You should
Of
do
course.
that for everything it says.
Exactly. I mean, truly a lot of this stuff comes down to just be careful. Make sure you have intent in what you're posting and make sure the information you're posting is correct. I mean, and 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 also post it everywhere. And
Yeah.
that's the main thing. I mean, post it everywhere, make sure it's correct, post it everywhere and note it on your website if you need to, if it's something very important. And all these models will come in and they'll see this information and tie it to you. What's very, very funny is that we can do these experiments now because a lot of this stuff is instantaneous. I actually it was funny. I was telling my wife about this. I was saying, "Hey, look, I did this experiment and it took 1 hour to get the information changed over." She's like, "I thought it'd be instantaneous." And I was like, "Okay, no. It used to take like 3 to 5 days to get this stuff done. Now it takes 1 hour."
Yep.
And she's like, "Well, I just you need to explain that." And I'm so into it now that when I write stuff, I'm writing it because I'm excited about it, and
Mhm.
and I'm not sitting there thinking, "Will someone that doesn't understand this understand it?" Because I'm just trying to get it out there because I want my name associated with this new information
Mhm.
that people can know about.
Yeah,
Because I mean, if I can get tied back to being a AI search source, it's gonna pay dividends in the end. And
exactly.
that's what everyone on that's listening to this podcast needs to know. If you can be the person in your field, if you can start writing things and start and posting often and whatever, if you have a real passion for it, you will end up being recommended by AI and you'll do a lot better because those 10 links that we had growing up, those are gonna go away in the future, and you need to be an answer, not just a little link.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's, I talk quite frequently about the death of the 10 blue links, right? Like it's not enough to be there anymore. And we've seen that with the advent of zero click. We've seen that with, every I'm pretty sure every single marketing manager, SEO this last year had a moment where they saw their site traffic and said, "Oh no, I'm going to lose my job."
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Well, but it's funny is AI was just looking at all the information on it.
Yeah,
So I mean, you had less people going, but the people that actually wanted to go could click on it or whatever,
we're
but
still going. Yeah,
you're
yeah,
still
yeah.
going and the information's coming from the right spot if you have it there. If you don't have it there, it's not gonna make it up for you. It'll
Mm,
find it somewhere else, and if it has to make it up, it's not gonna be right.
exactly. Yep. So I guess that, brings us to the question of, content that's not right, right? So how do things like deep fakes, synthetic influencers, we've seen a big rise in those, and even like AI avatars, how do you think that impacts trust in and on social media?
Well, being that I'm very into AI and everything else, I'm into seeing exactly what it can do. Uh, I know that other people don't have the same thought I do. I know that some people would rather not talk to an AI bot or see people that aren't people in videos and stuff because it just there's something about it that people are kind of iffy
It's
about.
almost it's also at the level and you know level of polish it's been at for the last year or so. You almost get into that uncanny valley feeling
You
where
do.
it's
It is so it's just so it just all these videos and images seem so over the top and so polished that I mean our life is not polished like that. I mean, look, there's dust on this plant back here. Like it like you aren't gonna get that. You aren't gonna get that in the AI image.
no.
But and so yeah, if you're going around seeing a bunch of AI images and seeing that they're perfect and stuff, and you're presenting yourself as a perfect product or whatever else, that can be kind of off-putting to some. Obviously, people want to see people. People want to see images uh, of their products, people in their products and stuff. I manage a big account for a online store called Cecil and Lou, and they do a lot of children's images, and I'm telling them they need to keep doing those because if they start doing those AI images, they just don't look as good. But also you got to take into account there's expenses involved.
Mhm.
I
Yep.
mean, there's a photographer to be paid and stuff, and if you can take that expense away and put it towards more clothes or something else, I mean, there's an opportunity there. So, I mean, there's reasons why people are wanting to post AI. It is truly because it can take someone out of the pipeline and you can do it that way, or you can add somebody new that can do three times the amount of stuff and take three people out. But and that's what people are worried about is AI taking your job like that? I mean, this is one of the things that's happening. A lot of creative types are getting their jobs yanked away from them because, I don't know photography and I will rely on a photographer because they know it and I don't.
Yep.
Uh, and and as I build websites, I use photographs and stuff. I try not to use all this AI stuff because eventually as time goes on, there will probably be a AI warning on all this stuff going in all these search engines and stuff. They can tell, and you might not pop up as much as someone that's actually using real photographs. Now, this is speculation. I don't know if this is going to be true, but as things are going, I can probably see this happening in the future.
So that's actually really interesting because I think like was it 2 days ago? Like very, very recently, TikTok came out with a change to their terms of service saying that like if you use AI generated content, you have to state that it's AI generated
Yeah.
content. And I feel like this is almost back social media platforms into a corner where they're probably very happy with the increase in content and posts and engagement that AI has brought on. But they're also, it's, by virtue of what it is and by the human reaction to a lot of those, things like the fake posts where it is that uncanny valley feeling. And then you figure out it's AI and you're like, oh, like that is cheapening their product, right? Because people go on social media to connect with friends and family, to hear to read the news, to, see some funny memes, things along those lines, right? So as more and more and more and more and more AI floods those platforms, there almost has to be that reaction like TikTok had, where it's like, okay, we need people to be able, they have to specify it. And again, to your point, they can tell. They know what is. There's ways to verify that. And, it's something that I think poses an existential threat to social if they're not able to rein it in and control it in a way that people are comfortable with.
And also you gotta take into account that, with more posting is more server space for all these people. I mean, you're gonna need to figure out
Yep.
where that money's coming from to host all these images and stuff like that. They're just getting flooded in by Nathan.
Yep.
All this stuff that people are just like, "Hey, I can 100 times this," or whatever, and they just start junking up stuff. And
Yeah.
that's not real SEO. That is just proving that this you can do a lot of things with AI, and that's about it.
Yeah. And it's the idea of quality of quantity, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that
So
and that's what I'm digging in here. I mean, it is about quality, it is about
mhm.
consistency, and it's about getting it out there as much as you can.
Yeah, and I think a big, I forget the exact company. It might have, I think it was Twitter. It might have been Twitter, and I'll never call it X
Yeah,
again.
yeah, no.
GMB.
Yeah.
I'm stuck in the old ways. But I believe that early on they had laid off a lot of their developers because they're like, AI can do this. And then I think it was 2 or 3 months later, they very quietly hired about 80% of them back because they were like, okay, we actually need somebody that knows what the output of this should be.
Exactly.
And, we need somebody to actually manage this. So I think that that's, a cautionary tale that people should have, right? Is, you know, yes, this is a really good tool. And yes, this can help increase reach. It can help make your teams more efficient, more effective. It can help you be able to do things that you can't, like photography. I'm not a photographer either.
No,
My sister is. She does amazing newborn photography. I don't even know which side of a camera to point where, So
yeah.
so this is something where, if it's like, man, we really need something for this one campaign we're running or for this ad creative, and we don't have time to get it, and we don't have the resources. That's something that we can leverage, but moderation.
Here's another thing to add to that is that, I did say AI coming for people's jobs and stuff. What you gotta realize is a lot of these people are, you know, they have no technical acumen whatsoever, and they're going in and they're just assuming that they can do all this stuff themselves, and they will start stuff. They won't be able to finish it because it won't be of the same quality that you can generate, and you're gonna have to go in and fix the stuff. You're you're not gonna go out of business. Actually, it's just gonna be another annoyance for you, I assure you, trying to fix everyone else's problems that they did with AI. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we we had a guest on probably a few episodes ago now who his company would go in, consult with companies and help build out agentic AI to help make their team more efficient. And it was never, how do I replace Susie in accounting? It was, how can I make her be able to handle more and to be able to, automate the boring easy tasks that take up, a inordinate amount of her time so she can focus on more important areas, and maybe accounting's not a good example, but more important areas, more
I was an
strategic
accountant
focus.
before this, so I completely understand.
Yeah, I was not, and I don't know that I could do
You can make
it.
more you can make more money working on a tax return than you can doing your own billing.
Yeah, fair.
So the more you can bill out is better.
Yeah, so so it's really interesting because, his whole point was, this isn't going to come in and replace 80% of people's jobs. But it is something that will replace you if you're not on board with, and you're not able to understand how to leverage this to help in your career and your role and help you be able to take on more and grow. And it creates like this really interesting moment, again, almost a Wild West moment, where employees at any business that are able to leverage this to be able to do more are going to look like rock stars. And those that aren't, that are, stuck in their old ways, they're going to be at the same level, but that level is going to rise, right? The average.
Mhm.
So they're, going to going to look worse in comparison. So I think that's one area that is really important for any of our listeners to to think of is, even if you're intimidated by it, even if AI is something that, you're like, I don't get it, I don't understand it. What's an LLM? There's all this hype, but I'm, I don't know what to do. I don't even know where to start. Start playing around with Chat GPT. Like that's a great entry point. Go in there, prompt it, ask for certain things. Next time you need to write a you know article, or next time you need to write an email to your boss, or next time you're putting together a plan for something, like
or
ask it
or
for an
or
outline.
anything you can actually imagine. I think the
Yeah.
first
Okay.
prompt I did was write a Jurassic Park, episode if it was a TV show. Just
Yeah.
off the wall. That's how it started, and now look at me, I'm here on a podcast talking about how AI can help you. But
Yeah, I think the first one I ever did, I prompted it to give me song lyrics about for a song about AI alongside a chord structure and strumming pattern for
there you
guitar.
go. Did you
And
sing it?
I did. I can't sing to save my life, mind you, but I can play guitar at least. So I
Okay.
did it. It was, I don't think it's winning any Grammys,
No.
but
Well, and obviously, if you did it back then and you do it now, you'll have a
Mhm.
completely different thing.
Oh,
So I'm sure
absolutely.
if you ask that same question, it's probably gonna be quite improved in comparison to what it came out with, a year ago.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's something that you can play around with, and you can do it in things that interest you. Like if you're into, I don't know, Dungeons and Dragons, go in there and have it make you a character,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
whatever it is.
it's really cool, nothing to be scared of. It will actually honestly, I think it expands your mind literally to the point where you can dream up anything and think of anything, and my biggest thing, growing up is you have a lot of ideas, and a lot of those ideas go away real quick in your mind. Perfect place. I have it on my phone. I will jot down an idea and I will put it in Chat GPT, and then I'll have a conversation saved for later that I can go back if I wanted to just to go on this idea. So it's just a great place to expand your knowledge for sure.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely. So, uh, to kind of bring it back to some of the topic around social media, do you think that AI kind of lowers the barrier to entry for brands to create a compelling social media profile, or do you think it raises the bar for originality? Like, do they have to try harder to stand out?
So nowadays, as time goes on, it will change. But right now, AI can produce things that you can't produce yourself unless you had Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, stuff like that. Stuff that some of these big firms are doing. So I do think it is lowering the barrier to entry for a lot of these people. But as time goes on, people understand that these are limitations of AI and I can do it better. And so these people that are professionals at this will find a way to make it different. And there will be a separation between the AI stuff that all these local people are doing and also these big corporations that are probably going to find another way to make it look even more incredible. But I seriously think there will always kind of be a local town feel for a lot of these things. I
Yeah,
mean, given, and it's not, and it could be that these big companies are using AI and they just know how to prompt it better or something, but I think there will always be just a disconnect between the 2.
yeah, and I think it gives a tool to expand, what's possible and expand reach. But yeah, if you are, a local, hometown soda, company that has two flavors, like it's not going to let you compete with Coke or Pepsi or
No,
Dr. Pepper, especially not with that jingle that just came out,
no.
um, or anything along those lines. So I think that, yeah, you're right. It's always going to have that kind of hometown feel, but I think it definitely helps people have, a little more leverage and reach than they might have traditionally.
What I like about it is that, you know, before you would have to sit down, spend a few hours, making these graphics and changing a few things, but now it's it's versed enough. It does a good enough job where you can actually tell it to do things. It'll actually, produce the words that you want inside of images. It'll make the images that you want and stuff like that. So if you, I mean, it's a great tool.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, specifically for that use case, yeah. If you tried to do any kind of image work a year and a half ago,
Oh, it was
early
horrid.
mid journey,
But it
I,
wasn't horrid at the time.
no, it was
Obviously, it was
amazing at the time.
incredible at the time, but looking back on it, it is nothing in comparison to what it is.
Yeah, you look at I think the first AI video that most of us saw was Will Smith eating spaghetti, right,
Yeah.
in the bowl,
Yeah.
and it was nightmare fuel,
Yeah.
I think is the only way to describe it, and now you look at what's possible, and it's like, okay, I'm having to, like, train myself to figure out if that's actually AI or
Mhm.
not,
Looking at
so,
fingers, looking at
yeah,
ears, looking at
counting fingers and toes.
what was it? The Coca-Cola, they came out with a national ad that used AI with those trucks or whatever, and people were all about pointing out how many wheels are on the trucks and all
Yep.
these errors and stuff like that. So,
McDonald's just had a big backlash for using AI in a creative too.
who is this?
McDonald's.
Oh,
Yeah,
McDonald's
yeah.
did?
They just about a week ago, our guest last week was talking about it, and I hadn't heard either. And I guess it was like an ad campaign or something along those lines, and it was something glaringly obvious, and an editor missed or something. But
Some see it as cutting corners, others see it as innovative. So it's all your
which
frame of
camp?
mind.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
camp? Yeah. So before we end today, because we are coming up on time, we like to do something with our guests called a rapid fire round. So basically, what I'll do is I'll ask you a series of questions. Just shoot us the first answer off the top of your head. You can expand on it if you want. You could keep it short and sweet. It's totally up to you. So first question: what's one AI tool every strategist should try?
Uh, as we talked about a lot, ChatGPT, if you are honestly new to all this stuff, it's the best one to get on first. It'll give you a lot of ideas to what you can do. Uh, Claude and stuff like that, that's more for like developers and stuff. That's more for me, people that do SEO work, people that actually do web design and stuff. But if we're talking about social, ChatGPT is where it's at.
Perfect. Next, what's one mistake brands make with AI today?
One mistake brands make with AI today is not using it to its fullest ability. You need to know how to prompt these tools to get what you want. If you just use the basic things, you're going to get the basic information. You need to have more robust information. If you're relying on it to go out to the public, you need to make sure it has everything that AI is looking for, uh, you know, dates, times, locations, stuff like that, and make sure that's prompted inside your prompt, and make sure everything that comes out of there is something that you want to post.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. Next question. One prediction that sounds crazy, but you think will happen around AI.
Well, we talked about those 10 blue links going away, and I truly believe that search engines will look completely different in a few years. I don't think we will have the directories that we used to. It'll be something of the past. I mean, I guess you can go to like Alta Vista or something like that if you wanted to, but I think Google and Bing are going straight into the AI search model. And this is why we're all talking about it. And this is why I'm on this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. This is why 99% of my job is AI search related, right?
Yeah.
It's very much a there's I mean, you look at it now compared to a year ago. You look at what just go to Google if you're listening. Google something. It doesn't matter what. You're going to see an AI overview, sponsored results, maybe a map pack. People also ask frequently asked questions. We call those featured snippets. Below that, you're going to see 3 organic links, maybe 5. And then below that, you'll see more sponsored results. So that fight for those 10 blue links,
Now
you're
you
now
have three.
now you're fighting for 3. And they're really, if you consider the position that they're in, even if you're
They're
in
not
that
where you
top
want to
3,
be.
they're still like well below the fold. So it's it still has value because there's a lot of evidence that Google AI specifically has correlation between high ranking pages and appearance in AI search results, but also it could just be that the content scale and everything else. So So yeah, I mean, I think that is. I don't think that's a prediction that sounds crazy. To be
Mm.
honest, I
Well,
think it's coming.
it's the one it's not it hasn't happened yet. It doesn't sound crazy, but it's
Yeah.
true. I mean, I am harping on it to everybody. I mean,
Yes.
it is going to be a change. And if you are not an answer, if you're just a link in a directory and you're not
Mhm.
answering the questions that you want, you're going to be left behind. And it's going to be a new internet going forward. You got to be answering questions now.
Yep.
FAQs are huge. If you can have them on every page, it's going to benefit.
Yep. Yeah. And we didn't even get into all the schema and everything along those lines,
No,
but
you didn't. That's and if
don't
we're
want to
talking
bore
social,
everybody.
you don't need to be talking schema anyway.
Yeah. No.
So
No. No. And I think that I think that something to think about is we are over the last 20 years have been trained one way to search for info, and that's you go to a search engine, you type in the topic or what you're looking for, even if it's SEO agency, St. Petersburg, Florida, right? And you go to that, you see them show up, and you go through them. You might click on the first three or four, and then you compare them, right? That's not how we're being retrained right now. People are being retrained to ask a question. So instead of asking like what are the local ones, and I'll review them, they're now asking what are the best in St. Augustine or St. Petersburg, Florida, right? What are the best, in the nation? And then
and
those,
also you got to take into account that they are asking it to rank them. They're
yep,
asking it the reasons why.
hmm
It's not just and they aren't
pros and
clicking on the
cons.
link, all three links to get to your website.
Oh,
They're still asking questions of this AI model until they get to one they want.
yep.
And so that's why we're talking about being the answer and being the source and making sure you are the one at the very end they click on.
Exactly. Like, what's the best link building agency for, a local plumbing business? Give me the pros and cons of each, give me price points, digging into all of that. All of that is no longer happening on your site. That's no longer somebody comparing your site to your competitors and going, which do I pick? That's all of that information being distilled down and somebody being able to have AI help pick through that and help them decide on what's best. So that's why it's so important to even be there. Because if you're not there, you're not there. Like, period. You're not in the conversation.
Right.
And it's so important to make sure that your brand is being, represented accurately. To go back to the discussion at the very beginning with, the hours being correct.
Yeah.
If you're a local, plumbing supply company, and yeah, I guess your hours are correct, and somebody shows up at 11 a.m. on a Sunday, and you don't open till 1. Well,
You lost a customer.
sorry,
Yeah.
they're not coming back. So
Yeah.
that's why it's so important. Human creativity versus AI. Who do you think wins long term?
Human, human creativity all the way. I mean, you're the ones with the ideas. You're feeding your thoughts to AI. It can only replicate whatever you give it. So I think human creativity over anything. I mean, we can do better with AI, but it's us that's driving the bus. So you gotta say human.
Exactly. No, I agree 100%. So I just want to say thank you again so much for joining us, Ryan. It
Yeah.
was an absolute pleasure to talk with you today. I love talking to anybody else with a background in organic and search. That's what I'm passionate about. So
Well,
it's always
Tristan, I enjoyed it a lot, and thank you so much for having me.
yeah, of course. Before we close out, where can people find you? Do you want to plug your socials,
So I'm very active on Twitter. Uh, my handle is rbales86. I'm not doing it on my business one because I'm trying to build a personal brand here.
brand?
And so that rbales86 on Twitter. Feel free to follow me. I post all the time about my experiments, what's going on, in some of these search areas. Uh, Also, you can check me out on the web at baileszindler.com, BAILESZINDLER.com. So feel free to contact me at any point. I'm happy to help.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
To our audience, if you like this episode, please make sure, do all the normal, hit follow, leave a review. And as always, please comment on topics you'd like us to cover. Whenever you're producing a podcast like this and you're having, new guests weekly, it's always nice to hear what our audience wants us to dig into because that helps us plan for the future and helps us keep our content right on point. So thank you very much again, Ryan. Thank you very much, audience, for listening in, and we'll see you all next time.